Did you think this Friday would be calm for the Commanders? You are completely crazy. I just checked the latest news and I can't believe what's happening with our team. We have an explosive situation involving our star receiver, a historic $3.8 billion decision that will forever change the future of this franchise, and a suggestion that could define the leadership of our future quarterback. If you don't stay until the end of this video, you'll miss information that no other channel will give you with this depth. I'm telling you this. Get ready, because what's coming will leave you speechless. Let's start with the news that's got everyone in the DMV talking and frankly has my heart racing. Terry McLaurin, our scary Terry, the receiver who's been the backbone of this offense for the past 5 years, has officially requested a trade from the Washington Commanders. Can you believe this? I can't believe we're in this situation. But let me give you all the details you need to fully understand the magnitude of this situation. McLaurin is in the last year of a 3-year, $68 million contract. He signed in 2022. This deal seemed like a good business for both the player and the team when it was signed. McLaurin received $22.6 million guaranteed, with an annual average of $22.7 million, making him one of the highest paid receivers in the league at the time. However, the wide receiver market has exploded. Since then, let me put in perspective what has happened with receiver contracts since Terry signed his. Tyreek Hill signed 4 years for $120 million with Miami. Devontae Adams got 5 years for $140 million with Las Vegas. A.J. Brown secured 4 years for $101 million with Philadelphia. Cooper Kupp renewed for 3 years for $75 million with the Rams. And more recently, Jamar Chase just signed a record-breaking 4-year, $161 million contract. Do you see the pattern here? The market has dramatically inflated, and McLaurin, who's consistently been one of the league's most productive receivers, is now being paid below the current market value. And here's what really bothers me. McLaurin has outperformed many of these receivers who received more lucrative contracts. Let's analyze his numbers from last season to understand why he deserves this contract recognition. Terry led the Commanders with 82 receptions, 1,096 receiving yards, and 13 touchdowns. Those 13 touchdowns were a career high, and his efficiency was extraordinary. He had a catch rate of 70%, meaning out of every 10 passes thrown his way, he caught 7. His average yards per reception was 13.4. Demonstrating his ability for both efficient short catches and explosive plays. But here's what really sets McLaurin apart from other receivers: his availability and consistency. In 4 years, he hasn't missed a single game due to injury. In a position where injuries are common and receivers frequently lose significant time, McLaurin has been the definition of reliability. He's played every 16-game season in the past 4 years, something very few receivers in the NFL can claim. Let me give you more context on why this situation is so frustrating. McLaurin was selected in the 3rd round of the 2019 draft, the 76th overall pick. Since then, he's accumulated 434 receptions for 5,443 yards and 42 touchdowns over 5 seasons. His average of 1,089 yards per season places him among the most productive receivers of his generation. Let's compare him to other receivers from his draft class. N'Keal Harry was selected 32 spots ahead of McLaurin and has been a complete failure. A.J. Brown was selected 23 spots later and just received a massive contract with Philadelphia. DK Metcalf was selected 18 spots later and signed a 3-year, $72 million extension with Seattle. See the pattern? McLaurin has outperformed many receivers selected before him and has been as productive as those selected. Sure, but hasn't received the proper compensation. Now let's talk about the timing of this trade request. McLaurin reported to training camp this week, but is participating in what's called a hold-in. This means he's physically present at the facilities to avoid fines, but isn't partaking in any on-field activities until his contract situation is resolved. This is a common tactic players use to apply pressure without losing money for unauthorized absences. On Thursday morning, negotiations apparently reached an impasse, and McLaurin officially informed management that he wanted to be traded. According to reports, The conversations between his agent and the organization have become contentious, suggesting significant differences in salary expectations. And you know what bothers me more about this whole situation? The betting houses immediately released odds on where Terry could end up if traded. Washington is still the favorite to keep him with odds of minus 250, implying a 71% chance he stays. But the fact that they're offering these bets shows the market believes there's a real possibility of him being moved. The New England Patriots have the second best odds at plus 450, followed by the Las Vegas Raiders at plus 500. What worries me is that 5 of the next teams on the list are from the AFC. Why is this important? Because it would mean McLaren would play against us only once every 4 years instead of being a constant threat to our division rivals. Let's talk about which teams could really afford and benefit from a trade for McLaren. The Patriots, who have about $60 million in cap space, could easily absorb his contract. They signed Stephon Diggs this season, but he's coming off an ACL injury, so McLaren will be a perfect addition. The Raiders also have a need at the position and the necessary cap space. Other teams that might be interested include the New York Jets, who are desperately in need of a reliable receiver for Aaron Rodgers. The Denver Broncos might see McLaren as the missing piece for their young offense. The Buffalo Bills might want to add another weapon for Josh Allen after losing Diggs. But do you know what's most frustrating about all this? McLaren doesn't want to leave. In all the reports, he's expressed his desire to stay in Washington and be part of something special. When he reported to training camp, he had a 6-word message for the fans that perfectly summed up his feelings. I want to be here forever. This isn't a case of a troublesome player trying to force an exit. This is a consummate professional, a locker room leader, someone who's been the face of this franchise during some of its toughest years, asking for respect and appropriate compensation, and the organization apparently isn't willing to give it to him. Let me tell you this. If we lose Terry McLaurin for not being willing to pay the market price for an elite receiver, it will be one of the most short-sighted decisions in the recent history of this franchise. We're talking about a player who's been loyal, productive, available, and professional for 5 years, and his only demand is to be compensated according to his value in the current market. If that surprises you, wait until you hear what Stephen A. Smith, one of ESPN's most respected and controversial analysts, is saying about this situation. And believe me, his remarks will completely change how you see Jayden Daniels' role in this whole drama. Stephen A. Smith just dropped an opinion bombshell that has the potential to define not only the future of Terry McLaurin with the Commanders, but also Jayden Daniels' leadership as the franchise quarterback of this organization. Smith is publicly urging Daniels to speak directly with the Commanders' management about McLaurin's situation. And let me tell you, his arguments are absolutely brilliant. But first, let me give you the full context of why Stephen A. Smith decided to get involved in this situation. Smith, who has a massive platform on ESPN and is known for not being afraid to express controversial opinions, appeared on First Take Friday morning and dedicated an entire segment to analyzing McLaurin's situation from an organizational leadership perspective. Here's exactly what Smith said, word for word. And pay close attention because this is pure gold analysis. Even if he's entering his second year, there shouldn't be a problem with the quarterback speaking for him. He could say, I'm the face of the franchise. I'm the star. This is what we've built. We were right in the NFC Championship game. I'm a young brother growing, and this is a veteran who helped me immensely. And he's produced and hasn't missed a game in 4 years. Do you understand the genius of this argument? Smith is essentially saying that Daniels, despite being only 24 years old and entering his second season, already has the influence and status to intervene in important organizational decisions. And let me explain to you why this perspective is so fascinating. Traditionally, rookie or second-year quarterbacks don't have this kind of political influence within organizations. It usually takes several years of consistent success and proven leadership before a quarterback can influence personnel decisions. But Daniels isn't a typical second-year quarterback. His rookie season was historically successful. And Smith argues, that gives him immediate credibility. Let's analyze the numbers that support Smith's argument. In his rookie season, Daniels completed 3,568 passing yards with 25 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. But more impressively, he also ran for 864 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. His 4,432 total yards were a record for a rookie quarterback. But here are the statistics that really matter in the context of McLaurin's situation. Daniels directed 117 passes toward McLaurin last season, representing 23.2% of the target share. Out of those 117 targets, McLaurin caught 82, a catch rate of 70%. This instant chemistry between quarterback and receiver was one of the key reasons the Commanders went so far in the playoffs. Smith continues his argument with an even more powerful statement. This is a brother I can trust, I can rely on, not only to produce on the field, but to help take a lot of pressure off me in the locker room. You have a guy in that locker room who plays at that receiver position, who's a high-level producer, who takes all that additional pressure off him. And you know why this point is so crucial? Because Smith is acknowledging something that many fans and analysts don't fully consider. McLaurin's value goes far beyond his on-field stats. McLaurin is a veteran leader who provides stability and mentorship to a young quarterback. Let me give you specific examples of how McLaurin has functioned as a mentor to Daniels. Last season, on multiple occasions, cameras caught McLaurin on the sideline explaining defensive concepts to Daniels, helping him read coverages, and providing technical feedback. In post-game interviews, Daniels frequently mentioned the importance of having McLaurin as a safety net in tough situations. Smith then makes a fascinating comparison with the NBA that I think is truly brilliant. He compares the McLaurin-Daniels relationship to that of Steph Curry and Draymond Green and the Golden State Warriors. His argument is that Green absorbs pressures and external distractions, allowing Curry to focus completely on his game without worrying about organizational drama. Now, I must be honest here. I don't fully agree with that specific comparison, because McLaurin is nothing like Green in terms of controversy or abrasive personality. Green is known for creating drama, public confrontations, and even physical incidents with teammates. McLaurin is quite the opposite. He's a consummate professional from whom no one had heard of problems until these contract negotiations. But Smith's fundamental point remains valid. McLaurin provides emotional stability and veteran leadership, allowing Daniels to concentrate on his development as a quarterback without worrying about inconsistencies in his receiver group. When a young quarterback knows he has a reliable receiver who's going to be in the right place at the right time, week after week, it immensely reduces the game's mental pressure. This is where Smith makes his most powerful and relevant comparison to the situation with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And this comparison, unlike the Curry-Green one, is absolutely perfect. When Cincinnati seemed uncertain about paying Jamar Chase and T. Higgins before last season, Burrow applied strategic pressure on management. And how did Burrow do it? He didn't create public drama, didn't threaten with holdouts, didn't criticize the organization on social media. He simply had private conversations with management where he made it clear that he, as the franchise quarterback, greatly valued these receivers and believed retaining them was crucial for the team's continued success. And do you know what happened? After Burrow intervened, 2 days after the start of the new league year, Cincinnati completed both contracts on the same day. Chase received a record 4-year, $161 million deal, making him the highest paid receiver in NFL history at that time. Higgins, who had been the most vocal about his contract situation, got a 4-year, $115 million deal. Smith then makes the argument that I believe is the heart of this whole discussion. Terry McLaurin obviously isn't going to ask for Chase-level money, but he'll certainly want more than Higgins, considering he's the WR1 in what many expect to be a top 5 offense in 2025. Do you understand the implications of this statement? Smith is arguing that McLaurin, based on his production, leadership, and importance to the Commanders' offense, deserves to be among the highest paid receivers in the league. And if the Commanders expect to have an elite offense, they can't afford to lose their most reliable weapon. But here's the part that really excites me about Smith's whole argument. He concludes by saying Daniels may not need to say anything, but it couldn't hurt to give his front office a nudge and let them know what their franchise player thinks of the situation. In this, at least, we can agree with Stephen A. Do you see the political beauty of this suggestion? Smith isn't asking Daniels to create a public confrontation or threaten the organization. He's suggesting a strategic and professional intervention where the franchise quarterback simply expresses his opinion on the importance of retaining a key player. And I ask you this, after the historic season that Daniels had, after leading this team to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1991, don't you think his opinion on personnel decisions should carry significant weight in organizational discussions? I believe Daniels should definitely follow Stephen A. Smith's advice. I'm not saying he should create public drama or threaten the organization, but a quarterback with his status and importance for the future of this franchise has all the necessary influence to express his opinion about keeping his most reliable offensive weapon. But here's the really crazy part of all this. While we're discussing the immediate future of our star receiver and the leadership of our quarterback, the DC City Council just approved something that's going to change this franchise's history forever. And I guarantee you this news is going to leave you completely surprised. Commanders fans, this is absolutely historic. The DC City Council has just approved, by a vote of 9-3, the $3.8 billion stadium project for the Washington Commanders. Can you fully grasp the magnitude of what's just happened? I can't believe it's finally happening. After decades of talks, let me give you all the specific details and the historical context needed to understand why this moment is so monumental for our franchise. This project isn't just a new stadium. It's literally the complete reimagining of the future of the Washington Commanders as a sports organization and commercial entity. Let's start with the specific numbers of the project because the scale is absolutely impressive. The new stadium will have a capacity of 65,000 seats, making it one of the most modern and technologically advanced stadiums in the NFL. To put it in perspective, FedEx Field currently has a capacity of about 82,000 seats, but the modern trend in the NFL is towards smaller, more intimate stadiums that create a better fan experience. The financial structure of this project is fascinating and shows a shared commitment between the private and public sectors. The team, under the ownership of Josh Harris, will spend $2.7 billion on constructing the stadium itself. This is a massive private investment that demonstrates the new administration's commitment to creating a world-class facility. On the other hand, the city of Washington, D.C. will invest $1.1 billion in infrastructure and parking. This public investment will include significant improvements in public transportation, access roads, parking systems, and all the infrastructure needed to handle the approximately 65,000 fans who will attend each home game. But here's what makes this project truly revolutionary. It's not just a stadium. The project includes a complete adjacent entertainment district that will completely transform the surrounding area. This district will include high-quality restaurants, retail stores, entertainment spaces, hotels, and most impressively, 6,000 residential units. Let's talk about those 6,000 homes, because they represent an entirely new vision for sports developments in America. Instead of building an isolated stadium that's only used 8 Sundays a year, this will be a vibrant community running 365 days a year. The homes will include a mix of luxury apartments, condos, and affordable units to ensure economic diversity in the community. The construction timeline is ambitious but realistic. The expectation is that the entire project, including the 6,000 homes, will be completed by the year 2040. This means we'll have about 15 years of continuous construction and development, creating thousands of jobs and completely transforming this area of the city. But let me tell you about the political and labor obstacles that had to be overcome for this project to reach the finish line, because the story behind the approval is almost as fascinating as the project itself. The modified project was finally approved after intense negotiations over labor commitments. The team had to commit to creating additional union jobs in a second hotel within the entertainment district. This was in addition to the initial commitments from the team for union work on the stadium site itself and on a first hotel in the entertainment district. Why were these labor commitments so important? Because local unions had legitimate concerns about whether this massive project would truly benefit local workers or just bring in contractors from outside the area. By ensuring that a significant portion of the work will be unionized, the council guaranteed that local residents will have access to well-paid jobs throughout the construction. The specific details of the labor commitment are impressive. The team has committed to having at least 30% of all construction carried out by local union workers. They've also guaranteed that the average wages for these jobs will be above the median wage for the Washington metropolitan area. Second and final vote will occur on September 17th. But multiple council members said the team needs to agree before that date to stricter penalties if it doesn't complete the mixed-use construction of those 6,000 homes according to the current expected timetable of 2040. Why are these penalties important? Because in the past, we've seen development projects where residential promises were not fully met. The council wants to ensure this isn't just a stadium construction with empty promises about community development. The specific penalties include daily fines if certain construction milestones aren't met, and in extreme cases, the possibility of revoking certain tax benefits. But here's the part that has me both excited and worried at the same time. Very recently, Washington's executives were genuinely nervous that President Donald Trump might block the new stadium deal using his federal influence. And do you know exactly what Trump said last week that caused this concern? In a public statement, Trump said, "I could put a restriction that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous nickname Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal to build a stadium in Washington." This statement from Trump created immediate shockwaves throughout the entire organization and fan community. Why? Because although this is primarily a DC City project, any development of this magnitude in the Washington metropolitan area inevitably involves federal considerations, especially related to transportation, environmental regulations, and security coordination. The controversy over the name remains incredibly divisive among fans. A recent poll showed that approximately 45% of longtime fans prefer the original name Redskins, while 30% support Commanders, and the remaining 25% are open to a completely different name. Trump, along with many Americans, is clearly not happy with the name change that occurred in 2020 after years of pressure from indigenous rights groups, corporate sponsors, and social activists. The change to Washington football team temporarily and then to Commanders was controversial from the start, with many fans feeling like they lost an important part of the team's historical identity. But here's what's fascinating about the politics behind all this. Despite Trump's public statements about the name, the stadium project has gotten the green light. This suggests that local economic and political considerations have outweighed concerns over naming controversies. And do you know why I think this project went ahead despite presidential opposition? Because the economic numbers are simply too convincing to ignore. This project will create approximately 25,000 jobs during the construction phase and about 10,000 permanent jobs once completed. It will generate more than $500 million in annual tax revenue for the city of DC. Let me put into perspective what those tax revenue numbers mean. $500 million annually is enough to fully fund DC's public school system for nearly 6 months each year. It's enough to double the current budget of the Metropolitan Police Department. It's literally transformative for the city's finances. But here's what really excites me about the long-term economic aspect of this project. Unlike many NFL stadiums that are only used for football games, this complex will operate as an entertainment destination year-round. The adjacent district will host concerts, festivals, corporate events, conventions, and community activities 365 days a year. Economic studies project that this complex will attract approximately 4 million visitors annually, not just during football season. That's about 10,900 people each day of the year visiting this area, spending money on restaurants, hotels, shops, and entertainment. To put it in historical context, this will be the largest sports commercial development in the history of the Washington metropolitan area since the construction of the Kennedy Center in 1971. It's comparable in economic scale to projects like Hudson Yards in New York or the Battery in Atlanta. Do you understand what this development means for the entire Terry McLaurin situation we discussed earlier? Here we have an organization that just secured a $3.8 billion infrastructure project, a project that will generate massive revenue over the coming decades. And at the same time, we're discussing whether they can afford to pay properly a receiver who has been the definition of consistency and production. The contrast is absolutely striking. On one hand, we have an organization willing to commit to a $2.7 billion investment in bricks and mortar. On the other hand, they seem to be wavering on paying market value to an elite player who will be crucial in filling that stadium with victories and excitement. I tell you this, if you were Terry McLaurin, if you saw that the organization just committed to a $2.7 billion expenditure on a new stadium, wouldn't you also expect them to commit to retaining the elite players who are going to create the memorable moments that justify that massive investment? The connection between these three news stories is absolutely fascinating and reveals fundamental tensions about the future of this franchise that go far beyond football. We have an elite receiver asking for contractual respect, just as the organization is demonstrating they have access to massive financial resources. We have a respected analyst suggesting our franchise quarterback should wield political influence within the organization to resolve personnel conflicts. And we have a city that just committed to the long-term future of this franchise with a historic investment that will completely transform the experience of being a Commanders fan. But do you know what the fundamental question is that connects all these stories? It's about what kind of organization the Washington Commanders want to be during this new golden era that's beginning. Are they going to be an organization that invests massively in physical infrastructure but skimps on the human talent that actually creates the product on the field? Are they going to be a franchise that builds a world-class stadium